What's going on, everybody? It's John with ACTION-FLIX.com coming at you with the ACTION-FLIX podcast. Got a special episode of the ACTION-FLIX podcast for you tonight. I got an exclusive interview coming up with a gentleman that he's definitely had a more interesting career than I've had. Absolutely. I mean, in terms of working, all I can say is, hey, I did retail. But this guy is, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to this guy. He's from Australia. I'll call him the Thunder from Down Under. I mean, I don't know if he likes that or not, but that's what I've dubbed him. Mr. Paul Allica has worked with some of the greatest in the film industry, and also you know him from movies like The Trigonal as well as The Siege of Robin Hood, which not only did he star in, he also directed it, wrote it. I'm pretty sure that he worked craft services for the crew too when the filming was going on. So let me bring Mr. Allica on board. Paul, how are you doing tonight?
How are you, John? I'm really good, mate.
Well, actually, funny story. Yeah, actually, absolutely. It's a funny story because I'm in Panama City, Florida. It's Saturday. Paul is in Australia, and it's Sunday. Am I correct?
That's right. And I love the time difference because it gives me an extra day up my sleeve whenever I get a US audition. So I love being in the future. Yeah.
So it's like talking to you in the future. So this is the first time I've talked to somebody in the future. So this is pretty awesome.
Let me know if you want the lotto numbers.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So, all right. So, we had talked in the past through email, and I did an interview with you on the website, printed interview. But this is the first time that we're actually talking, and you have had a marvelous career, my man. Working, like I said, with some of the greats, Jackie Chan, Wu Jing. Frank Grillo too, because you were in Wolf Warrior 2, and I can't wait to talk to you about you being on the set of that movie, because that movie was just like epic action. It was just like a action lover's wet dream come true. So I can't wait to talk to you about that. Then, of course, you were the bad guy in the Trigonal, where that was probably one of the best movies in terms of you demonstrating your martial arts prowess. But then, of course, you directed, wrote, did everything for The Siege of Robin Hood. And like I was joking, I think you also worked craft services for the crew when you were filming.
You have to wear a lot of hats. You have to wear a lot of hats in indie filmmaking. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So first of all, Paul, I wanted to talk to you first about getting into the martial arts. I'm a martial artist myself. I've been doing it since I was about 18 or 19. I'm 51 now, and I'm beat up as hell. But tell us your adventure of getting started in the martial arts.
Yeah, gotcha. Look, I grew up watching Jackie Chan films. My folks didn't have a big DVD collection, so I was often taping stuff on VHS off the TV. So I had a collection of about 5 movies I'd cycle through. One of them was Shanghai Noon, which I taped off the TV, and Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson. And, you know, it's something that I probably could quote verbatim at this point. I reckon I've seen it more than 100 times. And for whatever reason, it just stuck with me. I love the East meets West philosophy in the film, and it's just a whole lot of fun, you know. And so I think that's what got me interested in martial arts. I wasn't allowed to do it till probably about age 16. I remember asking my parents every day from about age 8 to 16, saying, "Can I do martial arts? No. Can I do it? No, no, no." And one day they finally relented. I said, "I'm going to move out. I'm gonna live on the streets unless I can do kung fu." I gave them an ultimatum, and finally I said, "All right, you can do a style." So I started in a style called contender, which is a local Melbourne style. So it was made here. There's only 3 classes of it, so it's quite a small style, but it's based off like Vietnamese kung fu of Vietnam. So it's like an offshoot of that. You know, a little bit of kicking, a little bit of weapons, gun defense, knife defense, traditional wushu forms. So it's a bit of everything. Not a whole lot of contact, but, you know, it looks quite nice. And that was a really good foundation because, you know, it's stuff that looks great on camera and it's good fun and you don't get injured, which was a big fear of my parents.
Right.
So that's where I started. You know, I kind of went from there. One of my teachers was in the film industry, and I'd always see him filming at the back of the class, getting the black belts and getting them to roll over each other's backs and shooting stuff. And over time, I got to know this guy, and he encouraged me to get into stunts and do some training with them, which was incredible. So that was, I guess that was where the seed was planted. Yeah.
So tell us about, okay, so like tell us about your first experience with the martial arts. Like, you take us through, like, because I remember my first day. Like, it was a long time ago, but I remember my first class and like being a fish out of water, and like, you know, there were people up in the front of the class that had been there longer than I have, and I was just like, what the hell am I doing here? And it's like, you know, and the rest is history. But you know, can you describe, can you remember your first experience of actually being in a martial arts class?
Yeah, look, I remember, because I'd wanted to do it for so long, there was a fear that, you know, when I finally went into the class, maybe it wouldn't live up to the expectations, or maybe it wouldn't be, maybe it would be too intense and you'd get beaten up. Like, I didn't really know what I was walking into, but the teacher was great, and the vibe was great, and I just, you know, I took to it like a fish in water. You know, I had a great time, and I was there every week, and I had a really good time, but it wasn't rooted in real traditional kung fu. As I said, it was a bit of a mishmash of a lot of different styles. So I ended up starting wushu about 7 years ago, which is, you know, a different style. Wushu is much more traditional kung fu. It's, you know, broadswords and, you know, a lot of kicks and jumps and acrobatics, and it's similar to what Jet Li did. So it's very theatrical. It's not so much, you know, street fighting and practical applications. It just looks beautiful. It's closer to, you know, in some ways it's close to like Beijing opera type stuff. And that first class for me, even though it was more recent, was a feeling of coming home. Like, oh my God, I can't wait. I can't believe I waited till I was in my 20s to find this style. I just did my first class. I clicked with the teacher. He was very patient, you know, seeing all the different weapons and all the different styles of, you know, Southern style and broadswords and rope dart and all these different people doing different things under the umbrella of wushu. It was like, oh my God, I found it. You know, I found the teacher. I found the school. These are my people. So, you know, I had that feeling a little bit when I was 16 starting, but more recently starting wushu, it was that whole feeling all over again. I found my people. So I really love it. Yeah.
Now your training, your style, like doing, where did you get traditional belts? Like did you get, like, did you do the traditional promotion and get in and get the black belt?
So in contender, I went up to green belt, which is about halfway.
Okay.
And then when I went to wushu, our style's a bit different. It's really funny. The first style I did, there was a really big emphasis on belts. So if someone was a black belt, they could be a junior. They could be 7 years old, and if they're a black belt and outrank you, they could boss you around and give you push-ups. And I'm like, I remember this little 7-year-old.
I know.
10 push-ups, and would have to do it. And it was such a strange feeling. Whereas this new style, it's the complete opposite. There isn't an emphasis on grading. We grade probably once a year, but I'm a black belt, but in our style, that's sort of three in or 4 in.
Yeah.
It's not the top. Red's actually the top in my current style. So I'm about halfway there. But technically I'm a black belt, but not not in a traditional sense.
Listen, as long as you've been doing it, I mean, that's the thing. Like, because in America, like, there's too much emphasis on, you know, belts, and it's like you can make the joke, belts hold your pants up. You know, it's got nothing to do like
100%.
with your training or anything. So it's like, but you know, but that's what people gravitate towards, you know. But then it's like best of the best, you know, where those guys are out in the mountains, like, you know, hitting trees and stuff like that. You know, there's no belts. You just know they're badasses because of what they're doing physically.
You can see pretty quickly, you know, where people's skills are at. You know, sometimes people have a high rank or a low rank, and you can just, you know, you can see pretty quickly what people can do. And I feel like I've got a lot to learn still. But in a lot of ways, it's freeing that this style doesn't have such an emphasis on belts, because you just focus on showing up and training, and you become friends with people. It's not like that guy's more senior than me and that guy's below me. We're all friends and we train hard. And yeah, it's a very different way of looking at it, but I actually like it. It works well for me.
Now, you had mentioned Shanghai Noon. Like, was that the first movie that you saw that was like, oh, this is martial arts? You know, what was, I mean, you know, so was that the first, you know, legit martial arts movie you saw?
I think Shanghai Noon, maybe Rush Hour. You know, both are very.
Okay, so it's interesting that you saw it was the Western Jackie Chan movies that you saw first. Like
Correct.
you didn't see the Hong Kong Jackie Chan, you saw the Western Jackie Chan.
I discovered all that later, and then obviously the Hong Kong stuff. That's him at his prime. But
Right.
A film like Rush Hour, it's so accessible. If you don't know anything about martial arts, you can watch that not being a fan and be like, oh, I get it. It's so inventive and creative, and it's using your environments, and it's. I think if you threw someone into an 80s Wu Jing film or something, people would be like, what is this?
Yeah, right.
It's a deep cut. So that's what got me in it. But obviously realizing that there's such a deep history that all of this has come from, it's been quite amazing going back and discovering a lot of that and where it's come from. Still got a lot to catch up on. Still got a lot.
So was being like an actor, was that something you always wanted to do, or did that come at later as you got older?
So I started acting in school. I started in school musicals. And
but was that were you you started doing that where you're like, okay, this is what I want to do, or were you just
no,
like, okay,
if I'm being perfectly honest, I got into the musicals because I wanted to get out of class and I wanted to hang out with my friends, and you got a whole week.
I thought you were going to say meet girls. I thought you said meet girls, like
and meet girls and meet girls. You're a year 8 boy and you're hanging out with the year 10 girls. Oh my God, this is amazing. So that was probably not super altruistic, but it was it was a way, it was a way to learn about acting as well. I actually didn't love drama class in school, but the musicals were really fun. It was a really fun thing, and it snuck up on me because I didn't expect to like it so much. About aged 18, I'd been doing a lot of action work, and I was getting the feeling, oh, look, I don't want to land on my head for a living. I really like action acting. I like people like Tom Cruise. He's a respected actor and he does great performances, but he really puts himself on the line. And it's professional stunt people. They're such a different breed of courage. You see these guys smash themselves, and I'm like, look, mad respect, but I don't know if I'm not at their level. These guys are insane, and so I started playing with the idea of leaning more towards acting. And I remember I was at a conference, and Donald Trump was presenting, right? This was this was before he was in politics. It was he was a real estate magnate at the time, and it was Donald Trump, Tony Robbins, and Robert Kiyosaki doing a speaking tour. So I went along to this thing. I was sitting in the right at the back on the cheapest $30 tickets that you could buy, and Donald Trump was up there on the stage, and I was thinking, how can I get into acting and action, and how can I make this thing happen? And say what you want about his politics, but it was just funny at the time. He said, sometimes to get what you want in life, you need to go after what you want and take a risk and just, go for it, put yourself in the position where something might happen. So the security guards turned around and they were facing this way in the VIP section. I walked past them and I managed to get all the way into like the diamond platinum area of this conference. And I was like, it was so sneaky. I was 18 at the time. So these were $1,000 tickets. And I'd paid 30, and I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be in here. And I was sitting there, and right in front of me, there was an actor from a show called Home and Away, which in Australia is one of our biggest soap operas. It's been running for 40 years or something. And I recognized the guy. I quickly looked him up on IMDb on my phone, and I tapped him on the shoulder going, hey man, can you give me some acting advice? I'm an actor too. And he's like, yeah, sure. And we became friends. He was an acting coach as well. So he gave me some coaching, and that's how I sort of got more into acting. But it's funny that that's where it came from. Me, Donald Trump saying, take a risk. And I was like, all right, I don't know if it was the smartest thing, but it paid off. So.
So what was your first acting gig? Talk about your first acting gig. I mean, unless you don't want to, I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, I did 3 school musicals, and then beyond that, once I'd graduated, I did a lot of indie stuff and short films, and I was also experimenting with making my own stuff. My very first short film was a film called Sugar Hit, where it's 5 minutes of action fighting through. The body counts 30, 40 people that die in it. They're fighting over this mystery box, and at the end they open it up and it's a box full of Snickers, and they just go, oh, you know, that was worth it. It was such a like a simple concept, but the body count was so high. And I actually rediscovered it just like a week ago. I hadn't seen it in years, you know, in 13 years. And I rewatched it. I'm like, oh my God, that is so funny. Like, you know, that was my first film. But I think just I tried a lot of different things. I did action stuff. I did drama stuff. Got my first agent, and then I started auditioning more professionally. And, you know, I did that for probably 5 years before actually saying, you know what, I want to learn the industry from another perspective. So that's when I went back to uni and studied a film degree. So I felt like you know, with stunts and acting, I had the front of the camera, and now I wanted to learn producing and directing and editing and that side. So that's why I went back to uni. Yeah.
There you go. So, okay, now comes the fun part of the interview. So how does an Australian go to China and, like, you know, then you're like, you know, you just say how, you know, Shanghai Noon was your first introduction, you know, Jackie. Now you're like, it's like, holy shit. And then, like, it's like, how does that happen?
So China was a bit of a leap of faith. As part of my film degree, we had the option of going on a study tour to China for 10 days. So it was part of our curriculum. The Chinese industry, as you know, is massive. You know, Hollywood, I don't know the exact figures, but at the time, China was doing 1,000 films a year, 10,000 hours of TV plus TV commercials. And Australia makes, you know, give or take 50 features a year. And, you know, a lot of those are indie. So you might get one or two or three massive big budget Hollywood things that are shooting in town. And that might be like Thor or Wolverine or something like that, which it's quite hard to even get a look in because it's such big budgets and it's cast out of LA. And then there's lots of smaller stuff, and there's not a whole lot in between. And then, you know, China, the ability to go over there and just see the size of their sets. And as part of this uni tour, it was eye-opening. You know, we toured VFX facilities. We got to see the China Film Group, which is, you know, the government-backed China studio where they churn out hundreds and hundreds of films every year. It was a real perspective shift of, wow, this is, you know, a big industry that no one's really tapping into. So I finished my degree, and I had literally one contact out of Hong Kong. He was a casting director and a producer, but he wasn't even really my contact. He was a friend, my old martial arts teacher, actually. So the guy that got me into it was saying, yeah, I know this guy, you should go over and maybe he can give you a look in and sort of help you get established in Hong Kong. So I would email this guy, and he's quite a big producer. Like, I won't name names, but he's very well established. And I'd email him and say, hey, you know, I'm thinking of coming to China. No reply. And then a couple of weeks later, hey, I'm still thinking of coming. Would you meet me for a coffee? No reply. Third, fourth time, nothing. And then in the end, my you know, this mentor said, you should just go. You should just go anyway. Rock up, call him, say, I'm in Hong Kong now. Just be on his radar, and then he'll probably meet you. So it was a massive leap of faith. I was freaking out. I broke up with my girlfriend. I sold all my stuff. I finished my uni degree. I didn't even get my my graduation certificate. So I jump on this plane with a bag and a little bit of money, get to Hong Kong. I contact this guy when I get there, freaking out. Hey, I'm here. You know, can we get that coffee? And he said, yeah, maybe next week. So he replied. I'm like, progress, great. And then a week passes. I'm sitting in Hong Kong, you know, in this tiny little, in this place called Mirador Mansion, which it's got a massive history. Like, it's got a connection to Ip Man and a lot of Westerners. I think Van Damme was there. Jackie used to stay there. And that was by chance. It's just it's like a cheap mega hostel type thing with mini hotels in it. And, you know, I'm staying there. A week passes. I call this guy again. Oh, sorry, I'm really busy this week. How about next week? And I felt like it was a bit of a test to see if I was serious. Like, how long will this wait? So, and maybe it wasn't. But anyway, I'm sitting in Hong Kong. 3 weeks later, he goes, all right, I'm free. Let's meet on Thursday. And it was a Monday. I'm like, cool. So we finally meet. And he was fantastic, and he was really lovely. He said, look, Hong Kong industry is a lot smaller than it used to be in the 80s. A lot of it's moved over to mainland China, so you really need to be in Beijing. And he you know, was nice enough to connect me with a couple of other local action guys in Beijing. There was an Aussie named Troy Sanford, who runs an action team called Troy's Team. And they do a lot of, you know, Westerners in action film. You know, they're the bad guys and the mercenaries, and they choreograph a bit and they act. And so they were quite well established. And Troy, being a fellow Aussie, was like, yeah, man, come training. Had lunch with me, and he was really kind, because after living in China without working for a month and a half, I'm running low on funds, and he was actually the guy that said, I found you 2 days on this set, and it's a Jackie Chan film, which was Kung Fu Yoga. That was my first gig in China. So I was this close to saying it didn't work. I'm going back to Australia. I'm out of cash. It didn't work. And then this guy kind of came through with the goods. It was only 1 or 2 days, but man, it really lit a fire under me to keep going. So that's how it started.
So talk about so Kung Fu Yoga, yeah. So one of Jackie Chan's later movies. So talk about those 2 days, 1 or 2. So talk about like being on a set of a Jackie Chan movie, even though it was only a couple days. I mean, it was like, I'm sure it was a pinch me, you know, myself moment, you know, for
100%.
You know? Yeah.
It was serendipitous, because the studio where we were shooting at was actually the one which would toured back when I was in uni on that study tour. So to come back to the same facility and be like, oh my God, I'm here now as a crew, as an actor. This is awesome. And look, it was a small part. They'd already shot someone and they needed some lookalikes, because those people had, you know, gone on to other productions and they were trying to do reshoots. And so they were very specifically looking for, we need a white guy with black hair, we need a black guy, we need an Asian guy that's this tall. And I just kind of fit the bill. I was like, cool, you know, if I get a chance to work with Jackie and see how these guys work, I'll take it. And you know, it was huge sets. You know, there's sets that you don't normally get to see. You know, huge factories full. It was a giant cave scene, a huge jade Buddha, and Jackie's running on wire and jumping up and climbing it, and you know, just to be around that energy. The director was Stanley Tong, and he's done a lot of amazing Hong Kong films as well, which are legendary. And you know, just to be around these people, I don't know, yeah, dream come true. Got a chance also to work with Sonu Sood, who was the main villain in that film. And so Sonu, he's like a big Bollywood star, and I hadn't had much exposure to Bollywood. And this was a India-China co-production, so there was, you know, half the team was Indian. So just to be on an international set with multiple languages, to hear Mandarin, and you know, it was very, very crazy experience, but happy I did it. And it was a way in, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. All you need is that one, you know, that break, you know, and then it's like, oh, okay. Then, you know, then it starts going in it. Yeah. Right. Well, you have to be tenacious. I mean, if you're not tenacious, then it's like, what the hell are you doing? You know, because it's like, you know, it's like, there's so many people like that want to become like, make these action movies and stuff like that. So it's like, what can you do to, you know, put yourself out there and like make people notice you? So that's basically, you know, what it entails, right?
Yeah. Well, sometimes, you know, as I was saying before, it's about being in the right place, right time, and being prepared and being willing to make those moves. And, you know, over the following 18 months, I was in China for 18 months. I think I did about 13 films or productions back to back. And
wow,
that was the first one. But it's just such a busy industry. And having had some acting training in Australia, there was probably only, you know, 200 Westerners that were in China at the time. So the competition was small, and to actually have some legitimate acting training, like I wasn't just a foreign teacher or something that they'd roped in, which sometimes happens. I was actually like, no, I'm trained. Here's my headshots. Here's my show reel. And I had a background in martial arts. To be a Westerner that could do some kung fu, that was sort of my way in. So, you know, from that Jackie film, I did some short films, and then I ended up doing a TV commercial with Peugeot. And then I did a TV show called Kung Fu Police, which is a regional show in China. I was playing a a bad guy called Rembrandt with a robotic arm. So when you punch someone, they fly through the air. There was a lot of wire work, and that was a regional TV show. So I was like, oh, what's the viewing numbers on this? You know, a regional show here in Australia might get 100,000 views, maybe 200, because our population's 26 million in our country. And in China, because the population's so big, they're like, oh, maybe, you know, maybe 50 million, 100 million might see this. I'm like, are you kidding me? 100 million. If we had a show in Australia that got 100 million views, it would just be next level. I mean, it's impossible. So just the scale was incredible. But I got to do some serious fight scenes in that. I probably had about 15 minutes of proper, you know, Hong Kong style action, long combos and wire work, and it was really fun. It was one of my favorite jobs, and then went from that to Wolf Warriors.
Yeah. So okay, Wolf Warrior 2. Holy cow! Like the first one was okay. Like I said, I remember watching the first one, and and there's like Scott Adkins was in it, and like there was this big build up and everything, and then like the fight happened, and I was like, did I miss some of it? I'm like, I rewound it and like went back to it, and I'm like, that was it. I'm like, what happened? You know, and then they made the second one, and it's like, then like with the second one, they're like, okay, yeah, we made a mistake with the first one, like, so let's like just totally like Wolf Warrior 1's over here, and they're like, let's take it over into this here, because the second one is just like this epic action spectacle, and you're credited as a mercenary, if I'm correct, because I was looking on the IMDb. So talk about, you know, not only like you got Wu Jing, you got Frank Grillo, who, I mean, that guy's the hardest working man in Hollywood. Every time I turn around to do an article, it's about Frank Grillo doing a movie. But like, okay, so tell us about being on that set and what was involved, and just like, you know, give us the behind the scenes.
So I just finished I just finished a couple of smaller productions, but I was in really good fighting shape. I'd been training a lot, and this opportunity came to audition for Wolf Warriors, and I didn't know much about it. I hadn't seen the first one at the time, so I went along. I went along to the audition. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I knew that the stunt team, it was a good team. There was some guys that had come over from America, and they were meant to be, you know, quite high level and done some great stuff, and that was about all I knew. I'd seen some of Wu Jing's work and thought he was amazing as well, but I showed up. There was probably about 15 Westerners that auditioned, and we trained for about a week. It wasn't a traditional audition where you show what you can do and, you know, learn some lines. It was, no, we're all just training together for a week in this wushu facility. So we're doing kicks, we're doing falls, we're doing gun stuff, they're doing previs shooting. And at the end of the week, I think a lot of them thought they were just going to get offered something. And in the end, the conditions, like financially, it wasn't amazing money compared to what you would normally get. And so a number of them just said, nah, I'm going to take this other job, and I don't really want to tie myself up for, you know, I think they were asking 3 months, and so people didn't want to lose the opportunity. So all of them, well, not all of them, but, you know, a large chunk of them were like, oh, we're going to take this job or that job or whatever instead. And there was only 2 that said, we want this opportunity. And that was me and another actress, Sarah Chang, who's gone on to do some amazing stuff. She just worked with Scott.
I interviewed her. Yeah, I talked to her. Yeah, she great. Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and Sarah. So Sarah speaks fluent Mandarin. I didn't, right? So she was going like a big sister on this, helping me. You know, Sarah, help me order a taxi. Sarah, how do I do this? She's like, oh my god, like, I'm stuck with this white guy that, you know, doesn't speak Mandarin in China. And I was trying my best, but she was very patient with me. And so Sarah and I, you know, we didn't know each other well when we started, but we became pretty close friends throughout the process because we were the only local hires. There was obviously a big stunt team, and then there was us 2, and then there was the Chinese side. So we were our own little thing. And it turns out the stunt team was, you know, one of the best groups of stunties that you could get in Hollywood. So we had Sam Hargrave, who, you know, had done Captain America, who was a stunt double for Chris Evans, had, you know, just
like,
come
who's
off,
that guy?
Like, yeah, you know, and he's gone on and, you know, now he's directing Hemsworth and Extraction. But Sam at the time, you know, he'd just come off Avengers, and, you know, Aaron Toney, who was the stunt double for Falcon, in the MCU, as well as Black Panther. You had,
right,
you know, the motorbike team from Captain America 2, like world-class motorcyclists. There was Black Widow stunt double, Heidi Moneymaker.
yes,
There was
okay.
Fair
Yep.
Harris. There was so many of these people sitting there where I'm like, oh my god, you know, this is such a great team. And for me, it wasn't about the money or the conditions or the time on set. Yeah, I knew I would have accommodation because I'd just be, you know, staying with the production. Originally, they were saying 6 days shooting out of 3 months, so it was a big chunk of time for maybe 6 days work. And I said, I don't care. I just want to work with these people. You know, I've got so much to learn from them. And so I signed up for my 6 days out of 3 months. And on the day that we were going to start shooting, the production, the Chinese side said, hey, do you want to actually be an assistant to that team? Do you want to just help out and be around them? I was like, yep. So all of a sudden I was on set every day for 3 months.
Sign me up.
And I was like, perfect. So I didn't really know what I'd be doing. In the end, I ended up doing a little bit of lots of things. You know, I was on screen. I died probably 5 times or 10 times. You know, you'd have a beard and a hat, and then you'd get shot, and then the next scene you'd shave it down to a mustache, and you'd get shot, and then you know, you'd have no mustache, but you'd hide your face, and you'd get shot, and then you'd shave your head on one side and get shot. So you would try and hide your face as much as you could because you keep getting the chance to do a different role.
So you're like, where's Waldo? Do you know Where's Waldo?
I'm all over it.
Yeah, like it's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch that now tonight and be like, can I find Paul Allica in Wolf Warrior 2?
Yeah.
Like it's like, let's go find him. It's like,
on one scene, I'm on the back of a car shooting this chain gun, and then they push a car into me, it explodes, and then I run down a staircase, and then I get shot, and it's like 2 seconds later. So it's definitely a fun game to play. Where's Paul? But it wasn't just me. I mean, all of us did it. Yeah. All of us died many times. But you know, behind the scenes, I tried to be useful. You know, I'd help wrangle the extras and you know, get them to do reactions and how to fall and die, and you know, safety on sets. We had cars flying around and jumping over buildings and smashing through stuff. So a lot of the time, it's just making sure people aren't standing on the roads, getting hit by these cars flying around.
That's, you know, yep.
There was a hospital scene where they flew a car through the 2nd story and smashed and took out everything in this fake hospital set. And we had to have the car on a rope, and we're all trying to like pull it to give it some pop to smash through things. And there's just a million things to do on a set, and it's just a matter of being there ready to go. So I learned a lot. It was really cool to work with some of these people. And I got quite inspired on that set. Went up to Sam quite late, you know, 2.5 months in, and I said, hey, I've got this idea, just spending time with you guys. You know, there's a castle back home in Australia, and it's like a medieval reenactment park, and I've been thinking about doing a medieval film. I have an idea for a script, and I think I was just trying to look for a little bit of advice, and he goes, yep, do it. I'm like, what? He goes, do it. Show it to me when it's done. I want to see the script. And I was like, what? He goes, go on. And then he walked off, and I was like, oh shit, what have I done? I've just talked up this idea, and I wasn't even thinking it was possible. And he goes, yeah, I want to see the script. Show it to me when it's done. So all of a sudden I was going, shit. I guess I got to write this
Sweat
script.
Starts pouring down your face. It's like I wasn't expecting him to say
that. I opened my big mouth. Sam's gone on and, you know, become a bit of a mentor and been a big supporter of me, which has been incredible. But I blame him. I'm like, it's your fault, you know. So you know, he planted the seed to write the script. I managed to do an audition for a mystery film, which turned out to be The Iron Mask. I didn't know who I was working with. It was just, again, it was another gig. So I went directly from Wolf Warriors. I got in a taxi. I did like a 4.5-hour taxi to the audition for this other show. Sam's like, yeah, go. You know, you've died 10 times. We can't use you anymore. Go. So I went over to this thing, and this film, The Iron Mask, other than the title, I knew nothing. There was rumors that Sylvester Stallone was going to be on it. I get there, and
then there's,
you know, turns out to be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's like, so we were just like, what in the holy hell? It's like,
well, I get there and they're like, yeah, so you're going to be with Arnold. I'm like, Arnold who? And they're like, Schwarzenegger. I was like,
Arnie?
Okay, cool. No one thought to tell me. So it was probably a good thing I didn't know, because I would have freaked out.
Right? I would have been like, I can't do it. No. It's like I would have chickened out. It's like,
yeah. So you know, to have gone from that, you know, to working with basically the Marvel stunt team directly onto a film with Jackie and Arnold, and this time with Jackie, it wasn't a one-day role. It was, you know, potentially 2 months.
mm-hmm.
So we got there. They told me I would be basically like a second in charge to Schwarzenegger's character. So he plays the Tower of London guard, which is hilarious because his accent definitely isn't British.
Who cares?
It's
Arnold. We have Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie. Let's put him in there.
Who cares? So yeah, he plays. I think his character was Captain Cook or Captain Hook or something. Whatever. We ran with it. So he's in the Tower of London. I'm like his 2IC. And so I got to spend a little bit of time with him, which was amazing. And I got to thank him for his book, Total Recall. That was one of the reasons also why I moved to China, because he went on a similar path going from Austria to LA in the 70s. And reading that inspired me to take the leap. So I thanked him for that. And, you know, he was very gracious and really cool to see him work, you know, really cool to see him work with Jackie. And, but yeah, when we first got there, we're on set and they filmed all of like my scenes, all the other cast first. So I was working with Jackie's stand-in, right? And they'd shot all of me. And then it was time to get, you know, Jackie and Arnold to fly in, because they're working on their own other films at the same time. So there was a scheduling issue where Jackie's available and then Arnold's not. He's busy. And then Arnold's available and then Jackie's not. So we'd already shot all of our bits, but they needed us to stick around so they could shoot the reverses, like over my shoulder onto Jackie when he gets there. And so they're like, you guys can't leave until, you know, those two get there. But it just kept happening. Arnold's now available. He's going to get here in a few days. Now Jackie's booked out. Now Jackie's available. In the end, it turned out both of them can't make it now for another 3 weeks. So you guys have 3 weeks where you just have to sit in the hotel and you're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to take any other jobs. You just got to sit there. And a lot of the people were groaning like, oh, you know, we want to go back home. And I was like, cool, I'm going to use this time. I jumped on a bullet train, went to Shanghai, stayed with a mate. And that's where I started working on the script for The Siege of Robin Hood, which was the script that I was talking stupidly, opening my big mouth to Sam Hargrave. Yeah, I'm going to write this thing. And now I was like, all right, I better write this thing. So I used that 3 weeks. I sat there. I was in a tiny little town in China called Suzhou. No shops. You know, there was one coffee shop, but no Westerners for miles. Not one person spoke English. It was very isolating. No distractions. No YouTube. No Google. No Facebook. Like nothing. And I sat there and I smashed out the script. Got it in with a day to spare before I had to go back. Bullet train back on set. Finished my time with Jackie and Arnold. Shot all of their stuff. Finished up. As soon as it finished, I jumped on a plane, headed back to Australia, and went straight into pre-production on Robin Hood. Crazy.
Awesome. So we'll get into the Siege of Robin Hood, which, you know, I remember, and I'll talk to you in a couple minutes, but let's talk about this little film. Now, this is the movie, the Trigonal, which is also called Fight for Justice. When it came out on DVD here in the States, it was the Trigonal Fight for Justice. I'm like, oh, okay. Because you can't just call it the Trigonal, because they think we're stupid here in the States. It's like, oh, what is that? Because they always have these great titles for action movies, but then when they finally come out, you know, it turns into Hard to Kill. It's like, oh, okay, because if it was called this, we wouldn't freaking know what we were watching. But that's besides the point. But so talk about the Trigonal, because that was my introduction to you. And
gotcha.
Listen, and like, and I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't know who Paul Allica was, you know, and I was like, okay, and then I watched this movie and I was like, wow, this Aussie has some skills, man. It's like, and you're a douchebag in the movie. Let me tell you, I'm not gonna lie. You know? You're which it must be fun. Like here you are now, you got a bigger role, and it's the antagonist, and so that's got to be a lot of fun to play the bad guy, right? So talk about you know being in that, So
much fun. So yeah, I just got back to Australia and I get a call from Sarah. So Sarah Chang,
who
I just spent the 3 months with on Wolf Warriors, going through, you know, some pretty tough conditions on set, you know, long days in the deserts, and we'd gone through some shit together. And so Sarah messages me and goes, hey, Vincent Soberano, her partner, is making a film. It's about an underground fight ring. You know, there's lots of action in it. It's shooting in the Philippines. We've already cast the lead, but we're looking for a douchebag, arrogant douchebag for the villain. And I thought of you, and I was like, geez, thanks, Sarah.
Arrogant white guy. Call Paul.
She's like, and I thought you'd be perfect. And I was like, thanks, Sarah. So I put down a tape for her and sent her my action reel, and Vincent had a look at it. I hadn't actually met Vince, and he's a martial arts legend in his own right, but he'd spent a lot of time actually in the ring, you know, and he's training UFC fighters, you know, boxing and MMA, and doing all this incredible stuff, like a legit champion. So to have him look at my stuff and say, all right, yeah, we'll bring you in, I knew I had to up my game. And after the tape, they said, you've got the role, but you've got to rip up. You've got to look like a boxer. And we're shooting, I think I only had about 3.5 weeks to prep.
So here, let's just show everybody. So that's what you had to look like when when cameras started rolling. So
yeah,
you know, so it's like, okay, so take us to that regiment. Like, so how much of a pain in the ass was that?
Oh, so, you know, you always wish you could do better and have more time, but you know, I had 3.5 weeks.
Well, yeah.
You do what you can, you know. So I was on a treadmill for an hour a day. I actually called Oleg Prudius, who's an old WWE wrestler who I just worked with on Wolf Warriors. So he plays Bear in Wolf Warriors. He's like this giant human being. And I said, hey, how do I cut weight real fast? And he gave me a bit of a protocol that they used to use for bodybuilding.
Okay.
Not recommended. It's painful. You know, you're doing hours of cardio on the treadmill. You're doing boxing. You're cutting your food, and then I also cut water weight on set. So they often do this with bodybuilding. You smash all the water you can so that you're just peeing all the time, and then you drop down from 5 liters down to 1 liter the next day, and then 600 mil, and then 100 mil on the day of shooting. And so your body's used to just peeing and peeing and peeing. And so when you get down to the tiny bit of water, you keep peeing and it dries you out. So all of your water weight disappears. And I'm not recommending doing this. It's not great for your kidneys. But for you know, a bodybuilding competition, they used to do this. And then just before going on stage, they would smash a whole bag of like Allen's lollies full of sugar, and all their veins would come out and they'd look really vascular. But you feel terrible. You got a migraine from not drinking any water. You feel dizzy and lightheaded. As a bodybuilder, you can go on stage for 20 minutes and flex and get off, and that's hard enough. What I didn't realize was I was going to be in that state fighting for 12-hour shoots with no water and feeling dizzy. And I had to do like high explosive, you know, kicks and jumps and all this stuff in the fight scene. I was like, oh, this was not smart. But
this wasn't a good idea. What did I do?
It was stupid. I should have just looked a bit fatter, but fine. It is what it is. So I get on set. We do the first day, and I was working with this guy, Ian Ignacio, who's an amazing taekwondo artist. He's playing the hero, and he was great to work with. Really good control, really good timing. And you know, we worked really hard. We got through the first 12-hour day in this flaming triangle ring with flames shooting up, and we're smashing each other. At the end of the 12 hours, it was pretty clear to us that we weren't going to get it all done in a day. And so they had to change the schedule and say, all right, we're going to film the second half of the fight, but we can't do it tomorrow. We're going to do it 7 days from now because we've got to shoot some other stuff. So all of a sudden, I'm dehydrated and have no water in my system. So I have to then smash 5 liters of water, puff up, and then cut down again so I look the same for continuity. I can't just stay the same or I'll faint, right? So I go all the way up, and then I'm sitting in the saunas every day to try and sweat out the last bit of water, and I'm on the treadmill, and brutal, man, brutal stuff. We finally get through to this second shoot day. They reapply all my fake tattoos and my dragon scars and my scar on my face, and I look pretty much the same. Like, cool, I've done it. We get up there, we do this fight scene, and we get through about 2/3 of it. So we don't get it all in that second day. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to have to do this for a third time. Cool. And it wasn't the next day. Again, it was 4 days away or something when they were going to get the last bit. I'm like, great. So then I had to do it for a third time and fill up on the water, saunas, treadmills, all this stuff to keep the continuity. So I managed to get it in on the third day, and I'm like, okay, never again. Never again. But we got it in, and it you know, it was a lot of discipline and staying focused, but it was worth it. You know, I had a lot of fun with it. I originally prepped an American accent for it because they said you're going to be an American, and so I drilled that with my coach. I get there, and you know, I start doing all the shit talking, you know, that you do in press conferences as a fighter, and Vince looks at me and goes, "Oh, it's good, but what else you got?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm just not feeling the American." And so I did like Aussie, and then I did Russian. He goes, "Yeah, nah." And in the end, I started, you know, Conor McGregor was fighting at the time, and I ended up doing a bit more of a, like, his style of cockiness. "You right, mate? I'm going to smash you. Get in this ring." He's like, "That one." I was like, "Cool." And so my first like dialogue scene was the following day. So I had a night to prep a new accent. It turned out well, but you know, it was one of those things where you just had to be prepped and roll with the punches. I had a lot of fun with that. It was a good role. It was good to be with, you know, so many amazing fighters. We filmed on tropical islands in the Philippines. You know, it was one of those dream roles that don't come around every day, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I was really thankful for the opportunity.
So I shared. I love this picture with you and Sarah. Like, you look. This is like a good picture of you. You just like. I love your look in this. You're just like. You're just like. That's like one of the best shots of you from the movie. You know, she's smiling, and you just look like, you know, somebody just took your cheeseburger or something. So that's like. And she's such a sweetheart. Like, I got a chance to talk to her because she did Accident Man 2 with Scott Adkins, and it was hysterical. Yeah. She was talking to me, and she had her kids in the next room, and she's like, "Oh, if you hear any noise, you know," it's like, "Oh, no problem," you know. So yeah, she was awesome to talk to.
Yeah, Sarah was wearing many hats on Trigonal as well, because she had a role in it, quite a substantial role, and
she was the fight coordinator, right?
Yeah,
she was the fight director, right? Yes.
Yeah. So she was in between the scenes going in and saying, "No, it should be like this." And, you know, I'd done some short stick work before in Contender in my martial arts style, but this was a very specific style of arnis. And the original name of the film was Tapado, Fight for Justice. So Tapado is a type of long stick Filipino martial art that's specific to a region in the Philippines. And so that's what they were trying to highlight, that it was like a regional martial arts. In the end, they changed it to the Trigonal because that was the name of the ring.
The ring, yeah.
And the distributors, I think, were saying, "Oh, we don't know what Tapado is," or you know, it reads funny, it might be Tapado type thing, and they just didn't.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see how like that wouldn't translate, especially to the West. You know, the Western audience would just be like, yeah, they would not totally get that this was a martial arts movie unless they saw footage from it.
Correct, but you know, there's a weight, there's a responsibility with doing someone else's martial arts style that's, you know, important to them. You want to do it right. You don't want to butcher it. There's all these specific moves, like with a long stick, with a cudgel, they'll hit down, but there's also a flick up. So you might be able to block one, but they'll come back and hit your head. There's all these like unique little movements that you don't find in other styles. So Sarah was getting her head around that, and we had local specialist instructors teaching that. And then I was trying to unlearn certain foundational things that I'd learned from the Vietnamese style. So there was all these things going on, and Sarah was really good at, you know, directing the action, making sure it was authentic. Vince was also fantastic at, you know, making sure the performances were there, and it all came together. I had a really good time, and I keep badgering Vince saying, "When's the second one happening?"
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, so let's get to your biggest project today, which, again, I love this poster. This was whoever did you think of this? Were you the marketing genius behind this poster? Because this is one of the listen, when you think of Robin Hood, like, this is the most awesome Robin Hood poster that I can personally think. I mean, that's better than Russell Crowe's Robin Hood poster. I mean, you know, that he did. So, like, where did that, like, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself again. So You had the script. Now you had to write it. So, because I did interview you for the because Seeds of Robin Hood, and you got a chance to talk about everything. But now that I'm talking to you personally, it's an amazing story. Like, you're basically homeless, like, making this movie. And like when you came back with your answers from our first interview, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, this is dedication right here. So talk about, because I remember, did you ever see the movie The Musketeer, which is, you know, a Three Musketeer movie where they infused Hong Kong style fight choreography into the film? Now,
I don't think
you didn't see it, okay, well, look for it, because it's not a bad movie, but it's interesting because it's a Three Musketeer movie, but they do the Hong Kong style, you know, fight choreography in it. So when you came about with this project, that's immediately what I thought of, because I was like, that is a freaking great idea. Let's do a Robin Hood movie with freaking Hong Kong. Yes, I'm like, I'm sold, I'm in. And I just remember, because of course I followed the transgression of the you know, the filming. Well, first of all, pre-production, and then filming, and then post-production, and then finally when I actually got a chance to see the movie, it was like, yes, because I had followed you on this journey, and to finally see it. But talk about the beginning. So talk about how you came up with this idea, because Robin Hood's been done to death, we're not gonna lie, you know, it's through television and movies. Everybody and their mothers played Robin Hood. So what creeped into your mind and be like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah. So as I was saying before, I'd written the script largely because I opened my big mouth to Sam and I had to back it up. So I'd written this script in China, and I had it sitting there. And, you know, I didn't know the normal way to raise money, you know, where you approach big distributors and, you know, get $5 million and do it that way. And I had the feeling that if I went down that route, I would have got pushed out of it, because my main goal with it was to show what I could do. And, you know, in China, I got a lot of experience. I worked with some amazing people, but a lot of the times there were small roles, or you'd get dubbed, or, you know, blink and you miss it type thing. And you might have spent a month on set and you've got a minute screen time. And they're fantastic, you know, they're fantastic jobs because you get to learn and you get the experience. But I felt ready after spending that time in China. I was like, I feel like I'm ready for a bigger challenge. And so I wrote this script, and I wrote it with myself in mind of playing Robin, because I thought it's a Westerner. I can fight. I can infuse some of that martial arts stuff that I've already been doing, and it's not going to look too out of place. There's already swords. There's already acrobatic type stuff going on. There was an early opportunity where we got some interest from Netflix Asia to produce it there, but then it looked like it was going to be a Chinese Robin Hood, and I might have a supporting role or maybe a writing credit. And I was like, well, that's not really why I'm doing it. There's so much amazing action talent in Australia. And just because our industry is small, a lot of them aren't working regularly. And I was like, I think we could do something pretty special and show the world what Aussies can do. And that's why I was quite set on it's not so much about the money. It's about how can we make this thing and make it the best it can be with the limited resources we have, and show what we can do. So the first little bit of money I raised was a random I met in China in a bar, and it became a friend of mine. What do you do? Oh, I work at BMW and I'm a distribution manager. What do you do? Oh, I'm an actor and I'm making a film. Oh yeah, that's cool. And we became friends. Eventually, you know, she invested a bit of money, and then I met some of her friends, and she helped me, you know, put together a business plan. And, you know, we weren't talking big money. We're talking a couple of $1,000 here and there from, you know, individual type investors. But that was enough to go into pre-production and to put a down payment on the castle. So the castle that I'm referencing in Australia, it's not a real castle. Like, the white history in Australia is about 200 years old. So there's no legit castles in Australia. This was like something that a guy in the 70s with a bit too much money decided to build for fun. And you take your kids there and you see a nice joust, and there's dungeons there and there's wizards, and it's sort of like a reenactment community. So I knew this was there and it hadn't really been used before. And I used the couple of $1,000 that I had to book that and an Airbnb. which would have 30 people in it, you know, a multi-room Airbnb. So then we had no money again, but we had a castle booked, we had somewhere to stay, and I had a credit card, which was going to be okay for the food. So I was like, all right. And my co-producer, Sean, at the time was freaking out a bit, saying, no, like, why don't we just wait another year and maybe we can raise more money? I'm like, do you know anyone with a spare $100,000 that's going to, and he's like, no. Okay, well, the deposit's non-refundable. So we're either going to do it or we lose that money. We might as well shoot something, right? And he goes, yeah, I guess. I'm like, cool, so let's do it. So we only had a couple of months to prep. I think it was like 4 months. We originally were going with a different team. And then we had some last minute changes with personnel, and one of the main actors dropped out, and then all the other people that had joined because he had a bit of a profile, they all quit as well. So I'm a week out, I'm rewriting the script. We recast the whole thing. We got Lancelot. Like, the only original cast member from the original casting was Tuck, Keanu Gonzalez, because he'd already started doing some choreography and saw that it looked good, and you know, he's like, oh, this is going to be amazing. But some other people, they just freaked out and thought, oh, I don't know if this thing's going to come off. So I'm really thankful to Keanu because he stood by us when we're going through that turmoil. But a week out, it's a scary position to be in because the castle's booked, but we haven't locked the script and we're recasting, and it's not a good position you want to be in. But we all kind of stuck together. We did some late nights. We cast Lancelot, Dave Beamish, 2 days out. We were casting people on the fly, you know, and we get there. You know, I'm not going to say it was an easy shoot. We shot, out of the 21 days, we shot for 20 of them. So we had 1 day off in 21 days, and they were long days. Most people were volunteers and students and people that had just finished uni and people that were just hungry. And I was very upfront. I was like, look, we don't have a big budget, but we're just trying to do something ambitious. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have jousts. There's going to be explosions. You know, like, you don't have to do it. I get it's a big ask, but if you want to spend a couple of weeks, you know, it's going to be a fun film. And everyone was really good energy. Everyone pitched in. There was no one that was just an actor or just a script supervisor or just a camera person. Everyone wore every hat. Everyone was holding lights and organizing food. My dad was running wheelbarrows up and down full of hay for set dressing. I roped in favors of my old scout leaders that built marketplace stalls for the market chase. You know, every favor we could, we all pulled in. And we got through that first 3 weeks. It wasn't the full film. It was probably about 60% of the film in the can. But I knew that it was downhill from there. We've got it all. We've got the main stuff there. We now just need to fill in all the, you know, location shoots of waterfalls and forests and that stuff. But we can get that. Doesn't matter. We've got the start, the middle, the end. We're going to finish this thing. So that's when I felt good. After the 3 weeks, we actually are going to get this thing done somehow. We've got no money left. We've got nothing for post. We've got nothing for these extra shoots that we need. But it'll get done. Yeah.
So, okay. So, like, let's talk about the action. Well, first of all, that's just awesome right there. Like, where did that come about? Like, where were you like, you know what? I'm going to put myself in this mask. It's going to look really freaking cool. It's like, because I remember, because when I saw that first shot with you or that first image, I was like, that's money right there. I'm like, that, I mean, you show that to action fans and they're just like, yeah, I'm in, I'll watch it, you know, because that's what I was like. I was like, absolutely.
That mask was the only custom prop that we got made for the film. And I knew it was important that it sort of fit the contours of my face. If we got something generic, and it just wouldn't work. And so when I was originally writing the script in China, in that tiny little town in Suzhou, I said I was staying at a friend's house. That friend is a prop maker. So he does masks in China. He does Iron Man masks, Batman masks. He 3D prints them. He's got a whole little team. And originally we were hoping he would do the armor and full costumes for the whole film. We obviously didn't get the budget that would allow that. So in the end, he'd built those masks as a proof of concept that we were using to try and raise money. So he took a clay cast of me, carved it, and then he took like plaster molds and made a few of them that we could smash. So we ended up having 2 or 3 of them. The idea was that it was kind of made me in silhouette look like a skull. And it was sort of like a bandit mask. And also my favorite film as a child was The Mask, you know, with Jim Carrey. the '94 film.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep.
So there was elements of that wooden, carved mask on that. So we used elements of that and elements of Scorpion. A lot of people said it looks like a Scorpion mask, but wooden. So we tried to use some of these things together. And obviously we weren't able to bring on that props team because they were in China. We just didn't have the budget. But the guy that runs it, Mike Lowe, he was nice enough to say, look, we've built them. You can use them. Just credit us. So that's how that made it in. But yeah, it's a pretty cool prop, and I think it really helped tie the costume together.
Now let's talk about the action, because that's what I'm all about. Not that I don't like story, or that's important too. But it's talk about saying, okay, this is what we're going to do for the action, and it's ingenious. I mean, I think so, because with how many, I said earlier that how many times Robin Hood's been done before, not like this stuff. And I'm like, when I started promoting it, I was talking to people. I'm like, dude, this, you got to check this out. Like, this guy's doing this movie, and it's Robin Hood, and they're like, oh, Robin Hood. And I'm like, yes, Robin Hood. But no, seriously, this is gonna be kick ass. So talk about the thought process, and then I want to pick your brain about the fight scenes and stuff like that, and your ideas. What transpires, and comes through your head. So, but first, start at the beginning about what you wanted to see action wise.
The thought process of, first of all, bringing it in as Robin Hood rather than generic characters was, I knew that we didn't have huge stars that we could sell it on. So
you needed a name. So yeah, we needed
a name. So it's Robin Hood.
Robin Hood,
and it's Lancelot, and it's Merlin, and it's it's all these mythic characters, the Sword and the Stone, all of this in one film. And there's really only two genres that you can sell without a star. One is horror, because if you have Brad Pitt in a horror film, it pulls you out of it because, that's just an actor, right? So that's why it's often no name.
There's many horror films.
Someone to project yourself onto and be like, oh, that could actually happen. So horror often works if you don't have a star. The other one's action, because action transcends language. If the action's good, you'll watch a film from Indonesia or from China. Whereas, when's the last time you watched a K-drama? Some people like it, but it's not as mainstream as action. It doesn't travel as well.
Action doesn't need subtitles, and it's everybody's language. Everybody knows exactly what they're looking at when they're watching an action sequence.
Correct. So so that's why we played with royalty-free IP like Robin Hood. But beyond that, we were quite loose with the mythology, because we still wanted to tell an original story, and we were well aware that the story is being told a lot. So we wanted to, make our own characters. I chose not to use Maid Marian because I didn't want a damsel in distress type character. So instead we made a character of Freda, who's more of a shield maiden with Viking skills. So she's got a sword and a shield, and she's smashing people. And so she's got her own style, which was inspired by Viking sword and shield styles. Then Robin Hood is obviously archery, a bit more acrobatic, a bit more like parkour and Jackie Chan Hong Kong style. We had Tuck, played by Keanu Gonzalez. He had a background in wushu already, so we gave him a straight sword, like a traditional Chinese straight sword. And so he was able to do, in the film, we made him Tuck a blacksmith rather than Friar Tuck. Because again, you can't do much action with a priest other than, smacking a wine bottle or whatever on someone's head. So we wanted to use these people that actually had skills and work the story around that. So, Keanu had incredible skills. He's a dancer by trade. He just finished a run on Hamilton, and now he's playing Kinnicky in Greece here in Australia. So he's got a theatre background and very acrobatic. So, he had a wushu style. And then we had Little John, played by Peter Ording, and he's a big guy. He's tall, he's huge, and man, this guy can move. He's a plasterer by trade outside of acting. But he also does stunts, and he's just strong. And so he's kind of like the muscle. He's like the Hulk. So when he hits someone with his hammer, they fly through the air and smash through a wall. And we did a lot of wire work, a lot of destruction stuff with him. But man, this guy can move. He's fast. So everyone had their own, and Lancelot's more traditional, sword, like a knight, clean strikes. So everyone had their own angle. And at the time, Avengers had just come out, and everyone had their own angle and personality and fighting style that complemented each other. And I think maybe subconsciously I was trying to create a similar circumstance where it's not all people just doing punches and kicks. It's not all people just doing traditional English sword clanging together, because over 2 hours it might get a bit old. So I tried to mash in a lot of these ideas. I had a really talented stunt team that we pulled together, and they choreographed lots of previs stuff and ideas. We didn't, unfortunately, just due to time, we didn't get to do all of the stuff that they'd planned. But that stunt team took over and basically did the marketplace. They did the tuck courtyard fight. They did the corridor sneak-in fight where there's lots of arrows flying. It's very stylish, very Hong Kong style. I think they did a great job, especially when you don't have a whole lot of resources to be able to do good quality action. It's a challenge, and it requires everyone working in tandem with each other. The camera people have to be in the right spots for the hits to land. You got to think of all of this stuff.
Right.
The actors have to be ready. The choreography has to be clean, and to pull off that much action in such a short amount of time with a very low budget, it's hard. It's really hard. So they did a great job. We have one sequence where we had explosions going off, where Little John's getting broken out of his cage. So this was stuff that I learned on Wolf Warriors, because there was huge explosions and pyrotechnics on that set. And I was picking up things like, how do we do fire cheap? They would have egg cartons that they would soak in gasoline, set on fire, and they'd get a little bit of fire that they'd put in the background, and it would just create some ambience. But it's cheap and it's pretty safe. It burns out in 20 seconds. So we still did things by the book. We had a stunt coordinator, and we had, insurance and all of that stuff. But rather than spend $20,000 on explosions, we were able to do 3 dust mortars and film it multiple ways, and then reframe it and make it look like 10. So, we're always thinking of different ways to make stuff work. Then we enhanced a lot of things with VFX. But, to have a full-scale joust, to have an explosion sequence, to have probably about half an hour of action in a film of this size, it was very, very ambitious. It almost killed us, but we got there in the end. And I hope the passion and the love comes through, because a lot of people, they worked really hard on it.
So yeah, well, the one thing, like my YouTube channel, so, and I'm not lying, your trailer, because when the PR people find, I'm not gonna lie, like when the PR people reach out to me and they're like, oh, we have the CG rock. I'm like, holy shit! I'm like, I'm finally gonna get to see this movie, because I was like through like the whole production and everything, and I shared the trailer. Your trailer is the most watched video on my YouTube channel. No
Is that
shit.
right?
You have like 150,000 views on my channel alone. Yeah, you're number one. So there you go. It's like, so yeah. So every time I look at that, I just smile. And it's like, when I finally saw the movie, I smiled the whole time, because one, I love these kind of movies, and two, I hadn't talked to you, but it's like I was with you through this journey. Now, obviously, I didn't. I wasn't. I didn't endure the pain in the ass moments that you did making it, but it's like I was like, oh my God, I'm finally, and when I wrote my review, listen, I deal a lot with the independent community, because anybody can promote Marvel films, and they don't need my help. It's like, it's that indie is where, especially nowadays, independent action cinema, because they're doing the throwback thing, like no CGI, practical effects, blood squibs, guys actually falling on cars instead of, a computer doing it. And with AI taking over, it's just like, I just want to throw up. It's like, bring me back to the 80s. So the next question I have for you now, because you've seen countless action movies now, right? So take us through what your process of a fight scene or any type of action sequence, because I argue with a lot of people, a lot of people come at me and stuff like that. My favorite action scene, and I'm just telling you from my perspective, is when the camera shows what the hell is like, it pans back, it swoops around, and it shows the people. Now, obviously, if you have actors who aren't trained and you have to use stunt doubles, you can't do that, because it's like, then you got to cut, you got to show this, you got to show that. But it's like that's why when you get actors who can do the action. That's my favorite thing, because that's when you can show the action. So take us through your thought process of what makes a good action sequence.
Yeah, I personally love when you can see what's going on. And the reason why it's not more common, especially these days, is because it requires more planning and it requires a lot of skill.
Yes.
It's quite easy to do shaky cam, and you can add the sound effects and it's passable, but you don't really comprehend what's going on. And if you go back to some of those legendary fight scenes from the 80s, they're often locked off cameras. Mm-hmm. and they're long sequences, but they're locked off, or they might have a slight zoom or a slight, left or right, but not much. And you can really see what's going on. Sometimes they'll do clever things like they'll establish something and then zoom up, have someone fall down, so you get a feeling of the space. But to think in that way, it's not showing up on set and just getting them to fight and then just picking the angles and hoping it works. It's thinking through what are the key moments that we want to highlight. There's a bit where there's a punch at a head. Okay, well, rather than just shoot whatever, we should put the camera right behind the head so that you move out of the way and the fist is coming straight into the camera type thing. You have to almost think like the viewer. You have to think with the edit in mind. And there's not many people that work that way, because you need time. You need time in pre-production, especially with previs. So you can't rock up on set and just, like with drama, all right, do the scene. All right, how are we going to cover this? Wide, over the shoulder, You can't. And get a good result. You really have to be there with the actors, see what they do, and then figure out, well, what are the angles where that punch is going to sell? This angle, it doesn't sell, or it looks weak. Let's pull it back and then move around them, or damn, it reveals that light. Okay, how are we going to? So there's a lot of that problem solving and patience needed to get a really clean, dynamic action scene. Production often doesn't allow 3 weeks training in a facility, because we need that time or that money for something else. So when it comes to action, ideally, production has an idea of that, and they will allow the team to have the time they need. With Robin Hood, we didn't have a whole lot of time, but we had some time. We did previs what we could, and it shows. Those scenes that we previs look clean, and the ones where we, had to just get it in the can, it was a nightmare in the edit. We made it work, but it really helps to spend that time up front doing it. I personally like clean martial arts. I like long takes. Yep. When an actor can do 3 or 4 or 5 moves in a row without a cut, it's less disorientating. It also requires both actors to train together to catch each other's timing, because you might have a really good actor and another really good actor, but if they don't train together and they get on set, they might punch each other in the head, or they, one might not be able to pull their punches. And so there's a lot of trust and timing that needs to get built up. I was very lucky on the Trigonal to have a full week training with Ian, who's a Taekwondo guy, before we even started shooting, and I wasn't shooting straight away. So I had quite a lot of time to catch his rhythm and timing and learn his distances and how long his leg is so it sells and doesn't miss, and where I need to be. Like, that's really important. So moving forward on anything that I do, I always try and previs rather than storyboard. A drawing is worth nothing if you can actually get there with the actors and the cameraman, and get the cameraman also going in and working out what lenses work. Then when you're on set, you can do 2, 3, 4 takes and you've got it, rather than, oh shit, we need to do 27 takes and now the actors are getting tired and someone's pulled a muscle because it's cold. And that's not a position you want to be in.
So that's why I like independent action cinema. Obviously, there's budget and time constraints. I've interviewed Scott Adkins a bunch of times, and his biggest thing, right, I always talk about, because I'm talking about the action and everything. He's like, I would love to be on these movies that have like 4 weeks of time for one fight sequence. He's like, I have like 2 days. And that's being generous. It's like he's a big name in the action, but yeah, his movies, like he said, I have a day, 2 days. I mean, if I have like a week, I'm celebrating. It's like, but that's where like from your standpoint with doing Robin Hood, like that guerrilla type of filmmaking, that's where you get your most creativity creativity flowing, and it's like, because you don't have the budget and you don't have the time, but you're still able to pull it out, because it's like, look, we can't do this, so we got to do that. So that I love even more. I mean, because like if you have $100 million, it's like that does, because I've seen movies that cost $100 million where the fight scene sucked, and this movie over here cost, you know, like 500,000, and it's like, but it's because the people behind the camera know what the hell they're doing. That's where it's at. No,
100%. Yeah, I mean, you look at the odd exception where they actually do get time to choreograph and train, like something like The Matrix, where they had months and months and months doing wushu with Yuen Ping, who, you know, is a Hong Kong legend. He demanded that. Yuen Ping said, no, these guys need to train so that they catch each other's timing, and therefore we don't need doubles. And that's why even to this day, you know, 20 years later, you watch those first 3 Matrix and you see every move they're doing, and their long sequences and the camera moves match up with it. It still holds up because you can see them really going for it and catching each other's timing. That wouldn't have been possible if they had a week. And I, like, you're right, Scott is one of the biggest names in the business right now. Like there's not a whole lot of action stars that are coming up. There's the old guard. There's, you know, Jackie and Jet Li occasionally doing something here and there, but you know, these guys they're in their 70s. And so to have someone like Scott come up, and Eco and Sarah, and you know, all this new guard come through, it's heartening to see, because there was a while where there was not really many people moving up, and Scott's really been a champion of this for a long time, and I hope he can use his influence and get us more than 2 days, because I agree, it sucks. It sucks when you don't have time to rehearse, but you know, you do what you can, and he's got such great skill that he makes it work with whatever he's got, and it shows on camera, you know. So he's definitely someone that I look up to.
Absolutely. So as we wind down here, and I thank you so much for giving me the time, because like I said, to being able to like pick your brain and actually talk to you, you know, because like that's why I like to do my interviews this way now, because it's like when you do it through print, it's like, yeah, it's like, but now you actually get to talk to the person. Now, as a filmmaker now, like, because you've done it, you know, you're acting, you're directing, you've written, you know, it's like, do you have a passion project, you know, in your head that it's like, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, if you can't say, I mean, but like, is there like this one thing that you want to do, like, you know, before you leave the earth?
Yeah, look, I would love to do a superhero film. I would love to do a traditional martial arts film, you know, straight sword versus broadsword versus monk spade, like a proper old school kung fu film in front of temples and leaves falling, and you know, these sorts of ideas don't leave me. I dream about them. So I'd love to do something like that. My next feature would probably be something along the lines of, you know, a modern day spy film or an action film, because when I did Robin Hood, something I learned is that all the budget goes into props and sets. Even the bowls and the cups and the cutlery are period. So you're just constantly spending money on costumes. And if you did a modern day spy film, well, all of a sudden it's just whatever you're wearing, and it lives and breathes in the action. So you're able to put more money into time to train, pyrotechnics, squibs, all the guns, all the things that you want to put on screen. So from a practical point of view, I'd probably be leaning towards a modern day action film next. I've got a couple of things cooking, but I'm always open to scripts and collaborations. I know that, you know, a lot of amazing people in the industry watch your stuff, John. So, you know, if there's people that are working on a project that, you know, they're really excited about, I'm always open to hear about them. I'm happy to collaborate. I also have a crazy idea which hasn't left me, and I really hate it because I still think about this thing. It's a musical, and it's not action. It's based in the Gold Rush era in Australia, and I don't want to do it because it scares me, and it's got singing, and there's a bit of action in it, but it's like about, you know, rebellion, and there's redcoats versus miners, and it's going to be this big thing. And I try and push it out of my head, but it's not leaving me. So there's a chance I might do something a little left of field at some point coming up, but who knows, man? There's a couple of things cooking, but I'm open to what's coming next.
So like, out of all these guys that are hot now, or like that, that are doing action now, like who's the, like, if like, I'm gonna ask you, it's like, who's the one person like you'd like to take on in a fight, in a movie? Like who would you be like, yeah, that's the guy, or girl? I mean, hey, I'm not gonna be sexist here, but it's like, who would you want to take? I mean, listen, you've been in a Jackie Chan movie, Wu Jing, I mean, but like who? Like, if the spotlight was on just you and that other person, who would you want it to be?
Ooh, this is a big question.
Good question.
Look, I would love to work with Jet Li. I know that he's not making a whole lot at the moment, but he's dipping his toe back. My martial arts teacher, Master Tang Lai Wei, was his wushu brother, so they were in Beijing wushu team together. So my martial arts teacher moves exactly like him. They're the same teacher, same age, and so I'd love to work with Jet at some point. I don't know if it'll happen, but he's definitely a hero. I'd love to work with Scott. I feel like we don't look dissimilar, so he could maybe be a big brother, or I don't know. He would be really cool to work with. I think he's holding the torch at the moment. Eco's amazing. There's so many coming up, but at the end of the day, it's often not just the star, it's the team. If you have a good choreographer and a good director and a good stunt team that wants to do something special, like look at the Martial Club guys in the States. They do incredible Hong Kong stuff, and everything they touch, I look at in awe. So I'm very open to anyone that's passionate about action. I'd love to work with a lot of people, but there are a couple of people that have just sprung to mind. Yeah.
So, okay, last question. Okay, so the last question. So, as somebody who's in the business, what like, again, when you leave this earth, not that I want to get morbid or anything, but what would you want your legacy to be? What would you want people to remember Paul Allica, like when all is said and done?
Ooh.
I saved the good ones for last. I'm sorry.
All right. What a head scratcher. I think on a practical level, I would love people to have seen me push the envelope in action. I would like people to also say that he was a good actor. But beyond all of that, I would like people to say that I was a good person and I helped people, and I was good to work with, and and I left the world a better place, because at the end of the day, I think that's it's not always easy, but if you can leave the world a better place, then that's a whole lot more important than a credit or a bank account. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it's a while away though.
That's a good answer. Okay, so stick around after I stop, because I just want to chat with you for a couple more minutes afterwards. But so, Paul, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the ACTION-FLIX podcast. I hope to talk to you again, because like I know, like you guys, like it's guys like you that like take the time, like to talk, and like, because like I'm 51, okay, I'm old, but I've been watching action movies since I was like 5, so it's like I'm like it's such a religion for me. So like to just like take a guy like you and pick your brain, and like all the behind the scenes stuff, it's truly a treasure. And it's like I can't thank you enough for like taking the time to talk to me and the fans about all of this.
John, man, it's a pleasure. I love what you do. ACTION-FLIX has been such a big supporter, not just of the film, but me as well. As I said it before we jumped on this call, I think there's a handful of people that that cover action, but there's few that cover it more passionately than you. And I think the whole industry as a whole is better off because of it. You're always there championing people and encouraging them, and we need more of that in the industry, man. So I thank you for your time as well, and thanks for encouraging me and anyone that's listening that's looking to get into action. I think you do a great job. So keep it up, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Like guys like you make it easy. Like I said, so for everybody out there, if you want good action, listen. Hey, I'm gonna watch Wolf Warrior 2 tonight. No shit. I'm gonna like look for like where's Paul? I'm gonna look to see how many times I can find Paul dying on screen. So,
Have
but
a shot every time.
yeah, there you go. Hey, there's no better way to go. So the
There you go.
Trigonal Fight for Justice, it's on DVD. I mean, it's go to Amazon, you can pick it up. The Siege of Robin Hood. Listen, when this movie came out, I was a champion for you because I had some people come out and be like, because you have naysayers, and it's like, listen, I just every time somebody came out and like said something negative, it's like delete, delete, delete. Like I was like your biggest champion. I even yelled at one guy. I was like, listen, if you think you could do a better job, then by all means get freaking sell your house, and because listen, this movie was a passion project for you, and like for what you did for like like you said, you ran out of money, and it's like for what you accomplished, it's spectacular. And like I said, it's people like you that are passionate about it, and that's what comes through on the screen. And that's the last thing I'm going to say.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the support.
Absolutely. So again, make sure you check out Paul, Siege of Robin Hood. It's on streaming, it's on DVD. It's if you want to watch a Robin Hood movie that is something different, it's not the same. Oh yeah, he robs from the rich, he gives to the poor. And like this is something different. The action's different. It's a fresh take on it, and you can just tell everybody put their heart and soul into it. And it's a great independent action movie. All right, so Paul. So, like I said, stick around afterwards, but I just want to thank you, and then thank everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my website, and also on YouTube. And Paul, where can they find you on social media? So now's your chance to plug away.
Instagram at Paul Allica. Website's paulallica.com.
There you go. So if you want to find out more about this guy that an Australian who went to China. That could be the name of your autobiography. The Australia who went to China, and the rest is history. There you go. I just wrote it for you.
There we go.
All right. So seriously. All right. So again, make sure you check him out in his movies. Paul, I want to thank you again. And then make sure you check out my website, ACTION-FLIX.com. That's action-flix.com. And we are your destination for your action fix and for Paul Allica. So again, thank you so much, Paul, for your time. And I will talk to you again.
Thanks, John. Yeah, look forward to it.
All right. Take it easy.
You.